Everyone remembers exactly where they were the first time they saw diversity win Britain's Got Talent. Not because it was just a dance routine, but because it felt like the ground shifted under the show forever. And here's the part most people don't talk about: when those familiar faces walked back onto that stage for their first and returning performances after the win, something was already quietly breaking behind the scenes. Tonight, I want to tell you the story that fans think they know, but almost nobody has actually sat with long enough to understand. Before we go any further, I want to pause for a second and speak directly to you. I've been reading through your comments on the last few videos, and I see some of you calling out the drama. And honestly, I get it. In a world full of scripted TV moments, fake beef, and AI-generated stories, it's hard to know what's real anymore. I felt the same way when I first rewatched these performances. I thought, okay, this is just nostalgia bait. But then I went back, watched the raw footage, the judges' reactions, the audience faces, the post-show interviews that never aired in full, and what I found genuinely hit me in the chest. Before we get into the heavy stuff, I'm doing this for you guys who still care about real stories behind these moments, so please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. It's the only way we keep this space honest and human. Now let's go back to the beginning, because you can't understand those first and returning performances without understanding what diversity actually carried onto that stage. When diversity first auditioned, they weren't supposed to be the winners. They were a group of young dancers from Essex, led by Ashley Banjo, who had already been told in 100 different ways that what they did wasn't mainstream enough. Street dance wasn't polished. It wasn't clean ballroom. It wasn't emotional singing with a sad backstory neatly packaged for TV. It was raw, loud, chaotic, and unapologetically modern. And that alone already made people uncomfortable. Their Series 3 win didn't just beat another act. It beat an expectation. It beat the idea that only one type of talent deserved that crown. And from the second they were announced as winners, something strange happened. Half the audience celebrated like history had been made. The other half went silent. You could feel it even through the screen. So when diversity returned to the Britain's Got Talent stage for their first performance after winning, the pressure was suffocating. Think about that for a moment. How do you follow a performance that already changed the show? How do you walk back onto a stage knowing millions of people are waiting for you to fail just so they can say, see? It was a fluke. That first returning performance wasn't just choreography. It was survival. Every move felt heavier. Every pause felt louder. And if you watch closely, especially Ashley, you can see it in their eyes. That mix of pride and fear. Pride in what they achieved, and fear that it could all disappear in one misstep. Here's where things started to get messy online. The moment that performance aired, TikTok edits exploded. Some people were crying, saying things like, "This is why they won. This is art." Others were brutal. One viral comment read, "They peaked already. This isn't the same magic." And just like that, the internet split right down the middle. Twitter, or X as it's called now, turned into a battlefield. One side was posting clips of the routine with captions like, "Name one group that's done it better since." The other side fired back with, "Stop acting like they invented dance." Reddit threads went deep, and I mean deep. Fans were analyzing frame by frame, arguing whether the emotion was real or manufactured. And I know what you're thinking. This is just normal fan behavior, right? But wait until you hear what was actually happening within the group at the same time. Layer 1 of the story is what we all saw: confident winners returning to remind everyone why they deserved it. Layer 2 is what the cameras didn't show. By this point, diversity wasn't just a dance crew anymore. They were a brand. Schedules were packed. Expectations were sky high. Every performance had to mean something. And that pressure doesn't unite people the way you think it does. Sometimes, it quietly pulls them apart. Layer 3 hits when you realize how young many of them still were. These weren't industry-hardened veterans. These were guys who had gone from rehearsing in community halls to carrying the emotional weight of an entire generation of dancers who suddenly saw themselves on TV. That's not light. That's heavy. Then came the later returning performances, the ones that fans now rewatch with a completely different lens. On the surface, they were tighter, bigger, more cinematic. But emotionally, Something shifted. The joy was still there, but it was sharper, more controlled. Almost like they were protecting something. This is where the internet really lost its mind. TikTok comments started saying things like, "Why do they look tired?" And, "It feels deeper than dance now." One comment that went viral said, "They're smiling, but you can tell they've been through something." And that comment alone racked up hundreds of thousands of likes. On Reddit, a fan wrote, "I don't think people understand how much hate they got after winning. That doesn't just disappear." And that's the part most casual viewers miss. Winning didn't end the criticism. It amplified it. Every return to that stage reopened the wound. Because every time, the question lingered in the air, are they still worthy? Now here's layer 4, and this is where it starts to hurt. Those performances weren't just for the audience. They were for themselves. A way of proving they hadn't lost what made them special. But imagine having to prove your worth over and over, on national television, while strangers online debate whether you deserve your success. Ashley Banjo later hinted in interviews that there were moments when the pressure nearly crushed him. Not because of the dancing, but because of the responsibility. He wasn't just leading a group. He was carrying the hopes of kids who finally felt seen because of diversity. And that brings us to the final layer. The one that reframes everything. Those first and returning performances weren't about topping the win. They were about survival in a space that never fully accepted them. They were about walking back into a spotlight that both celebrated and questioned them at the same time. The biggest shock isn't some hidden feud or secret argument. It's this: the real battle wasn't on the stage. It was in the silence after the applause faded. It was in the hotel rooms, the late-night rehearsals, the moments when they wondered if winning had cost them more than it gave. So when you rewatch those performances now, I want you to ask yourself something. Are you seeing dancers trying to impress? Or are you seeing young men fighting to protect something they built against a world that was never sure it wanted them there? And here's my question to you. If you were in their place, would you keep going back onto that stage, knowing every return meant reopening the debate about whether you deserved to win in the first place? Let me know what you think in the comments. Was diversity's return about celebration, or was it about proving something over and over again?